The problem is that if the Democrats bring a lawsuit, the lawsuit could take years to resolve. And how do you have a candidate where there's something, over the head of the party and that individual?
Less than 4 weeks to the Iowa caucus, the true beginning of the process for selecting the next man or woman who will lead America. And what issues dominate the airwaves and water coolers for potential voters? Birth certificates, sliming opponents, cliches that have been overused to the point of putting people into a coma. Talk about a woman candidate not having strength or stamina, and what type of shoes a candidate is wearing. Seriously? Let's get to this edition of The Political Animal, where mere mortals fear to tread. Begin on the right with contributor at the Federalist, welcoming back D.C. McAllister, adding from the left, veteran political analyst, CEO of Bannon Communications, Brad Bannon. Thank you both for joining us. D.C., I'm going to begin with you. Donald Trump says Ted Cruz's Canadian birth could be very precarious for the GOP. D.C., I'm going to stop this one right here. Ted Cruz is eligible to become president of the United States. The Constitution says it. The Constitution analysts say it. There is absolutely no question whatsoever that Ted Cruz is eligible. So what are we doing playing this ridiculous game over again?
Well, Trump's just taking care of him. He said he's just looking out for his best interest. I mean, that's what he said, right? So he's kind of just playing games with it as well, I think. He's looking for anything to needle him with. He was asked this question by a reporter, so I guess he had to do something with it. But it will probably come up if Cruz were to win the nomination. You're going to get this from the Democrats.
But it can't. But D.C., it can't come up. It's constitutionally settled already. I've got it right in front of me. It's there. He is a citizen of the United States. There's no question. So when Donald Trump sits and talks about getting involved in lawsuits, and again, this isn't a bash against Donald Trump. This is just against all this birther talk. Isn't this just useless hyperbole, just air?
It is. I mean, but you're going to hear, well, the Supreme Court hasn't made a statement on it. They've never heard the case. And so there's always this little question. And so you're probably going to hear some of that. It's just that we need the Supreme Court to settle the issue once and for all because we really don't know. And, there's just these kind of political games you're going to play when you have, you want to defeat somebody.
Brad, we've heard the birther over and over again. Is this something that the left will use or could use, or is it really just something that candidates and experts are going to stay away from and say, look, we've settled this already, let's not even bother? Where does it go?
Well, I think it's going to be the latter. I think you put it well in your open-ed. I mean, the Middle East is on the verge of war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and we're talking about Ted Cruz's citizenship and whether Marco Rubio wears heels on his boots or not. This is crazy. There's about as much chance of me voting for Ted Cruz as there is I'm playing the shortstop for the Red Sox next year.
All right, if you get the Red Sox job, I'm going to be all over you on this one. Go ahead.
But Ted Cruz is served in the United States Senate. He was a clerk to a Supreme Court justice, and his mother was an American citizen. There's, as you said, there's no issue, and I don't even know, it's ridiculous. We're having, that's what we're talking about, hat and Marco Rubio's boots. Crazy.
By the way, I hear you have no range to your left whatsoever, so that's going to take you right out of the job right away. Listen, on the left, Brad, let me ask you this one, because here's Bernie Sanders, and I saw him again this morning on the shows, pledging he will break up the banks, break up the financial firms. Brad, we've heard this time and time again. Here's another one that we just get tired of hearing. Bernie Sanders swears he's going to do it. Nobody's done it at this point. And not only that, you talk to some of the people who are involved in banking, not necessarily on Wall Street. They say you just can't do it. You're going to kill the American economy. You're going to hurt people if you do this. So isn't this something, again, he's just blowing smoke and it's not really a real issue to get involved in. He's making space for himself.
No, I think it is a real issue. I read his speech and I agree with most of it. Now, he pointed specifically to one issue. And that is to reinstall the Glass-Steagall law that separated banks from investment firms. And if you want to talk about economy killers, it was Glass-Steagall that killed the economy by letting banks get in the business of running casinos. And I think the repeal of Glass-Steagall, as Senator Sanders proposes, would be good for the economy and would create jobs and would put Wall Street in its place.
All right, D.C., let me come to you on another issue here, because now we talked about sliming. Chris Christie talked about Marco Rubio, said he cannot slime his way to the White House. Chris Christie, I think, has been very good in answering a lot of questions from reporters, been very straightforward. But is he now becoming a little bit too hyperbolic here? Does he need to back it off, or is this what he needs to do in order to continue to push forward?
Well, he's trying to mimic Trump. I mean, he sees that working for Trump, so he's going to say, I'm the big mouth in the race as well, but I have substance, I have a governorship behind me, I have policy that I've worked on. So he's trying to mimic Trump, but having substance. So you're probably going to see more of it.
All right, let me ask you, when it comes down to this, Brad, you mentioned a little bit about the boots. Marco Rubio, his boots, we saw it on the morning shows. People made a... Can we just stop, Brad? I mean, really, is it not fair to say that this is the epitome of a silly season here when you start talking about a guy's shoe wear?
Agree with you 100%. This is ridiculous. And as I said before, Saudi Arabia and Iran are on the brink of war, and we're debating a question that shouldn't be debatable. Ted Cruz is eligible to become president of the United States. Now, I may not like it, but legally he is. And Marco Rubio's boots, I don't know if I hope we can't get any lower than this. Ed, it reminds me of that song, The Limbo. How low can you go?
Wait a minute. I think we could probably go a lot lower. Let's not try that. D.C., 30 seconds. The Democrats are all over the president right now over these immigration raids, 121 undocumented immigrants taken into custody. I guess from your side and the right would say, it's about time, Mr. President, you got down to business and did the job.
But we need to enforce our immigration laws, and that's something that hasn't been happening, and that's one of the problems that we see with this issue. We don't need more laws, we need enforcement of the ones that we have.
How mad are you, Brad, that the president's doing this? Because the left seems to be pretty ticked.
Well, I think what we should be focusing on is rational immigration reform, so we wouldn't have to go through all this.
All right. Well, we're going to continue to go through it because here we are, like I said, less than 4 weeks to go to Iowa. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get hotter. D.C. McAllister, Brad Bannon, I want to thank you both for joining us. We will talk to you again. Now, the candidate who never should have gotten into the presidential race, some believe, and cannot talk his way back in no matter how hard he tries. Who is that? You may already know. That and more when the Hardline continues.